For me, if there's one scary financial story I wish I'd crumpled into a ball earlier in life, it is that becoming a wealthy woman will come at a great cost. I was that person who thought it would mean losing out on love and meaningful relationships. When you're busy making money, who has time for anything else? This was the story I told myself. For the longest time, I equated making more money and being extremely ambitious, particularly as a woman who also wanted to have a family, as a zero sum game. You can't have both at the same time. What you gain as a financially powerful woman, you will lose in your life as a wife, a mother, and a friend. This is what I believed because I didn't have any role models growing up to disprove this. I believed it even after writing my book, When She Makes More, which is all about how to thrive as a breadwinner in your relationship. I still had limiting beliefs about how much wealth is too much wealth for me. This mindset left me afraid to pursue bigger paydays. Instead, I wish I'd thought, Farnoosh, there is no shame and no penalty in wanting to be richer than you are. My story is funny. While I was raised with a narrative that the key to success was to study hard and rise up in my career, my father provided scripts, in fact, for how to declare my worth in job interviews, and I was encouraged to ask for raises. Cultural and family tradition also dictated that I, quote unquote, settle down at some point, dutifully deprioritizing my career and dedicating more time and effort to raising a family. Even a close relative who had arguably the highest expectations for me and was considered the rebel in our Iranian family because she married a man for love and not status or power or money. Can you imagine? Once pulled me aside at a Thanksgiving dinner in the early 2000s when I was in grad school to give me what she probably thought was the ultimate compliment. You're going to do big things, Farnoosh. I can see you one day marrying a senator. Being a wife who was powerful and held in high regard merely by association was, in her view, as good as it could get for a woman. Despite being pushed to succeed, the money message I received was clear. If you can somehow get to the top of your career and make a lot of money and raise a family, good luck. You'll need it. That day, the day I detached from this fear and rewrote my story came not long after having my first kid. I was on my bed one afternoon with the door closed so I wouldn't wake up my son asleep in the other room. I'd scheduled Barbara Hewson, a wealth coach for female entrepreneurs, for a podcast interview. At this point, I was the family breadwinner and had written about it. I was adamant about helping more women reach their fullest financial potential. I was proud that I'd taken a chance on starting my own business and had managed to grow income every year since. I had afforded a life of many conveniences and privileges. We had a full time caregiver, owned our own apartment in Brooklyn. My podcast was taking off. I felt like I'd reached quote unquote enough insofar as I could pay for our household needs and more, including donating to causes and nice vacations. I was grateful for the fact that I had managed, of course with some real luck, to do the thing that many had doubted, be a high earning woman with a business and a thriving family. But I was also afraid of pushing that luck, afraid of wanting more, thinking bigger, and earning, dare I say, double or triple what I currently made. No way. I could almost hear a Persian auntie in the background saying, Bishin Sarjat. That's Farsi for sit back down and in your place. I was afraid of being too ambitious for my own good. That afternoon, Barbara said something to me that really challenged my story, and to this day, I credit her for convincing me that I could and should strive for more. First, though, some background on the singular Barbara. She's a leading authority on women, wealth, and power. She's written several books. My favorite is Prince Charming Isn't Coming. An interesting fact, Barbara is the daughter of the R in H&R Block. But despite being but despite a wealthy upbringing, she admittedly made several financial errors throughout her life, and her fear of again being financially reckless led her to allow her husband, who she thought was a compulsive gambler, to manage her inheritance. Despite believing he had an addiction, she continued to give him the financial reins in their marriage. And this arrangement became a major problem for her because, in the wake of their divorce, she said she received surprising tax bills for over $1 million. And her father, he refused to bail her out. She was a single mom to three daughters at the time and flat broke. She said, I signed whatever he told me to sign because that's how ignorant, how terrified I was by anything to do with money. Barbara told me. All this to say that Barbara is now a pro at detecting financial fears in other women. And in our conversation, when the topic turned to my career and my belief that I'd reached the pinnacle of enoughness, she shot back with a simple question: why? I gave her all my previously stated reasons, and she challenged them one after the other. My money fears, she concluded, were rooted in the antiquated, patriarchal way that I'd been raised. And the first step to reversing the script on this fear was to disinherit that narrative. Barbara's own falsehoods around money stem from being told as a kid to never talk about money. So she recognized immediately how my upbringing created a mythical fear around money and a limiting ideal around enoughness. These stories were preventing me from having a healthier relationship with the idea of building wealth. I had assumed that being able to comfortably support my family was as pioneering as I could get, or as I should get.
I feel like so many women can see themselves or hear themselves in that story. And too often, I'm curious your relationship with story versus creating a reality. Because what I heard you say is, you know, we always have limiting beliefs, we always have challenges, but there is a point where you can still take ownership for the outcome that you want. And that, do you see women charging towards that? Do you see women leaning in or leaning out? What has been your relationship to observing that in women as you have like written multiple books and all the work that you do? Because I don't think it ever goes away. People believe that they are that person. They're good with money or they're not good with money. But we're all sitting with a duality of stories that we're telling ourselves.
I think we have so much doubt in what we're actually capable of doing. So while the intelligent brain, the intelligent side of our brain says, you can do this, this is not rocket science. You are entitled to doing this. There's nothing about you that says you can't be rich or shouldn't be rich. And yet we struggle with, to your point, this duality of like what we intellectually know to be true, but what is keeping us back, which is these deeply ingrained narratives about what it means to be a quote unquote good wife, a quote unquote good mother, and a quote unquote good friend. And a feminine woman, frankly, right? Like it's not a femininity has never really been associated with richness, wealth, creating financial abundance. It's only now that we're talking about this, and it's a relatively new phenomenon and a relatively new movement, which I'm excited about, and I've dedicated my career to it. But the reason I've had longevity in this career is because we have to continue having these conversations. It's a newness to it that it's almost like people ask me, like, why don't more women ask for more money? Why don't more women aspire to become the CEO or put their hat in the ring to get promoted or start that business? And I say, it's not because they can't, or they don't even, they probably do even believe in themselves, but we don't have the practice. We don't have the role models. We don't have the relationships and the network and we don't see it. And
Mhm.
so, like anything else, if you don't see it, you don't believe it, you don't pursue it. And I think men have had more practice. It's like they've gotten more reps in. And so part of what needs to happen is we need to let time unfold. And we need to continue encouraging women to step into their power, their financial power, their leadership power, because these two forces of sort of like the narrative that you're raised with, but also the truth of what you're capable of they're opposing right now. And it's going to take time, but that's why I'm so excited about the work that I do, because it's just, there's a lot I have yet to like sort of scratch the surface, I think, in my career.
You will not be out of a job.
I have job security, I guess.
Job
Yeah.
security. When you're like a culture shifter, you really want to make a big impact in the world. Sometimes you feel like you're like swimming upstream. Is that what they call it? Going
Hmm.
upstream. And it's just the resistance, the current of a conversation is headed this way, the narrative is this way, and I am trying to lean into the other way. So I hear you. I hear what you're saying, and I know on your podcast we talked about time. I never realized the correlation between managing time, managing energy, managing money, and the unlearning and the relearning. There's it's not only new skill that you're learning. It's not like you're reading a book and you're like step by step. It's there's multiple things that you're relearning here. And if I hear from so many women, I'm sure you hear this as well, is like the desire is there, but what is getting in the
Mhm.
way of it's on my wouldn't it be nice list versus I'm making this wealth, like I've created it. Or I have wealth, like I've made the money, but I feel like I'm lacking in other areas of my life. What do you think are getting in the way of a woman stepping fully into that? What's required of her to actually make this a reality?
It's not being stuck in the short termness of it all. The short term can be painful. The short term sometimes requires difficult trade offs and compromising. It does. I mean, like we talked about time, it's a limited resource and money's a limited resource. So one decision here means not doing a decision over here. And who can decide between family and work? It's like it's impossible. You need to work to make the money, and but you want to show up for your family. And so I think you have to get very clear on how to manage your time with work and with your family, which is not, again, it's a new thing. So having mentors, having a relationship to other people, with other people, a pipeline to someone you can call for help and call for insights. We need the power of community to be able to inform us as to how to get things done. And it's not about copy pasting, but it's about taking a little piece of it from here and there and making it your own. I've been blessed in some ways, because sometimes you don't control who you like encounter in life. You go into your first job, your second job, and you have your coworkers, and then suddenly you have your family or your work family. But I've had the incredible gift of having women in my life who are a little bit further along in age and also life stage. So when I was in my early 20s, single, they were dating, or they were early stage marriage, or they were about to have a child, and they were professionally ambitious and holding those two goals in balance and how they were doing it. And I will say that I sensed a lot of unapologeticness from these
Mm-hmm.
women. Unapologetic. I come first. And it wasn't a greedy thing. It wasn't like a selfish thing. It was like, we talked about this on my podcast when you came on, is just that you have to believe that investing in yourself is an investment in everyone else you care about and everyone else you want to touch and help.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a philosophy you got to get behind. And the quicker and more deeply you can get behind that, I think then things become clearer to you in terms of how to prioritize and invest and move through your life, holding these two important desires of yours to nurture a family and to nurture a career and to have financial independence in balance. And balance doesn't mean equal all the time, but just that you're tending to these things as best you can, as genuinely as you can, and you're showing up. I think one thing I really try to emphasize to any woman who will give me, a minute of her life, is just that money equals options and optionality. When you prioritize your financial well-being, you are inherently, your life is opening up. Okay. So if you are concerned about how you're going to support a family, or you're caring for anyone in your life, whether it's your parents or your causes, your children, your partner, yourself, money creates options. So prioritizing your financial health is literally prioritizing your life and your
Mm-hmm.
health. So again, it's these belief systems that I have come to quite early in life that have helped me design a blueprint for myself that incorporates what's important to me in terms of being a mom, and also a provider in my family, and also a provider in my work life, and a creator in my work life. And so when I met Barbara early on into being a mom, Barbara Hewson, one thing that I didn't finish the whole passage, but what I was going to go on to read was that one mindset shift that she gifted me was that financial power, if I just said the term, like when I say power, financial power, I mean, you and I probably have evolved to see this as a good thing. Like power is not
Mhm.
bad. But I
Yeah.
do think that culturally, especially amongst women, this idea of power, it's tainted. We see it as a negative. Oh, it's power to control, to take over, because that's how it's been demonstrated to us. That power is like this very masculine, this very charged, this very aggressive existence. And so
Mhm.
it's not speaking our love language for a lot of women. I can't
Yeah.
speak for all women. It definitely wasn't my love language. And so when I thought about being rich, I equated it to like this like power domination. And because Barbara simply said to me, "Don't you want to be powerful? Because money is power after all." And I said, "No. Ew." I said, "Thank you for
Yeah.
putting it in that context because that justifies why I'm not going after the big money." And she said, "Whoa, whoa, whoa. Let's unwind this. Let's unpack this because what is your definition of power? Because I think we need to clarify this." And I said exactly what I told you because I was in um this place of thinking that power is ugly. And she said, "No, power can be really beautiful because think about it. When you have power, you can help, you can heal, you can uplift. So I challenge you, I encourage you to sort of expand your definition of power and decide what
Mm.
kind of power you want to hold and how money can fuel that." And when I thought about it, it was like, mind blown because now I'm like, oh my gosh, yes, more power in my hands, the world
Yeah.
will become a better place. And I do believe this of women. I recently helped a woman negotiate a deal, a six-figure deal, and it's a record deal for her, and I think for the industry that she was in, and it was just like a moment. And then later when I asked her how that money, like as I said, I basically said, "What'd you do with the money?" I'm a curious person. I get nosy. And she said, "Well, first I renovated my kitchen, but then I also hired my father, a full-time nurse, a full-time
Mm.
caregiver to come to his home and help him rehabilitate." And I fell to my knees. I was like, this is why we give women money because we know on a small scale in one aspect, when we look at charitable giving, even though women make less than men and there is the pay gap, as a percentage of our incomes, women are more charitable than men. And I think if you extrapolate that to sort of go, okay, if that really means that women are maybe more generous or giving with their money, you could make that argument. That extrapolates to so many other realms of life, right? They're going to give back to their communities. They're going to reinvest in their in the causes that they believe in that helps the world go round. And I don't think every woman has to do this. I'm not saying get rich so that you can be philanthropic if that's not your thing. But I do think that it was for me an awakening of what more money in my hands could mean, not just for myself, but for what I believed in, who I cared about. And I think that's an important discovery. And I think I would offer that to anyone listening if they have never thought about money in that way, that sense of
Mhm.
enoughness. Like we often think, well, do I have enough? Well, sure, maybe you do.
Yeah.
And if you had more, what else could you do with it? That's beyond, it's not even about you, if that's your desire. Like essentially, I'm getting to what is the why behind wanting to make more. I thought I had it figured out. And then I realized, oh, there's a bigger why beyond my why. It's other
Mhm.
people helping other people.
So much of what you said is what I heard is becoming healthier as a
Hmm.
person. And when we are healthier, we can give more. And if that's the resource, like a financial resource, that's truly how we're going to create impact and change. And another thing I want to dig into a little bit is people associate money as time for dollars, and then that brings in the time situation and child, like, and then that's the work life balance. But let's just pretend someone is not quote unquote making a dollar, was talk about financial health in the sense of, it's, to me, I see it as like nutrition or your physical body. It's something that you need to attend to and you can't avoid. And if you do, you begin to feel like trapped or lack. So the concept of financial health in itself, someone's listening to this and she's like, yeah, I don't make an income, but I am in a partnership where, like, but I don't know what's going on with money either. Where does she begin? Like, she can still be financially healthy.
Yeah, I want to say to this person that while you may not have your own money in your own bank account, that you as a person who is contributing to your household, you are a financial mover and shaker. You are adding economic value and you are bringing economic value to your household. So while you may not see dollar signs in your bank account that has your name on it, know that you have financial anatomy, that you have financial value. And that's the first thing. So and it's a radical way of thinking because to your point, we equate, what's in my bank account to what is my sense of self-worth, right? Net worth is self-worth. And if it's only my partner making money, it's not really my money. It's our money, and believe that your being home and working from the home contributes to your partner's ability to go out in the workplace and do their thing and bring money back into the household. So you're a team and you have economic value and you have financial power in just that role that you're playing. Now, as far as, do you want to go into how to make more money or how to actually
I
have
want to
physical financial
I want to go
independence?
to that conversation, because what I often see is a woman, whether she's making money or not, like, and then the next level is like investing in all the things. But if she's, regardless if she is making money or not, she doesn't feel in control of her own money and she feels disempowered by it. Where do you begin? Like, a perfect example is I was having a conversation with a woman one day and she's like, my husband, my husband, my husband, my husband. And I said, well, then just put up boundaries. I said, then send him an invoice and stop providing the service that you're providing. And she was like, I could never. I'm caring for my family and blah, blah, blah. I said, then this is not about him. This is about you valuing
Yeah.
yourself as a human.
So every woman needs her own bank account, her own credit card. And while you might have a shared account that pays for all of your shared expenses, that's great. But I really encourage not just women, every person in the partnership should have their own accounts. And that's one like low hanging fruit way to create instant financial autonomy to a degree. Beyond that, it comes down to having transparency over the accounts. And now with technology and apps, there's no excuse to not being able to do this. You can literally do this after listening to this podcast. Go on. I use Empower, which is a free, well, it's a financial institution, but they have a free sort of like it's a way to pool all of your accounts onto one dashboard so you can see everything. And couple, this is great for couples because usually like you need your own account logins, but this you can share the login. And so you can see when the credit cards get cleared or when the checks come in and as the cash flow, and you can see your net worth and you can see your investments and you can see that your home is appreciating in value because it's connected to Zillow. And it's just a nice way to walk through life knowing that you can access your financial truth at any point. And you don't have to go asking and, feeling like, if it's uncomfortable for you to have financial conversations, it breaks the ice. It gives you a lot of information without having to ask any questions. I would also say that if you feel like your partner is resistant to having fluid financial conversations of any scale, like whether it's like a small question like how much was that or how much should we pay for this to what's our retirement plan, I think that every question should be fair game. If you experience a partner who's resistant, That's not you. That's them. That's a them problem. And, you want to work together on that. Maybe it's about bringing in a financial planner to sort of level the financial conversation playing field. And they can be someone to give you guys prompts to get the money conversations flowing. Because here's the thing, I don't want to punish anybody immediately for not being super comfortable talking about money. This is difficult. And we
Mhm.
don't have any playbooks growing up typically. And we get into these relationships and we love each other and we want it to work, but money is often a huge point of contention. And it starts with our lack of vocabulary and fluency around how to talk about money, not just like even with ourselves, but especially with partners. So giving your partner grace and saying, okay, I get this is difficult for you, but we got to work through this. So what would be helpful? Do we bring in a financial planner temporarily? Maybe it's just a 3-month engagement. Do we go to a financial therapist? Those people
Mhm.
exist now because they've seen this incredibly fertile market for helping people work through a lot of their financial challenges, which are often rooted in trauma or their upbringings and a lot of the emotional stuff. So the resources are out there, and when you detect any level of financial discomfort and friction in your life, in your relationship, let that be a red flag and a cue for you to go out there and find the people and the resources and the tools, sometimes free, to bring you closer and to give you the playbook, give you the scripts, give you the foundation, the frameworks, because I don't think it should be expected from anybody that like everyone has all the answers. I'm still learning, right? As someone who's been dedicated her entire career to financial education, as the world evolves, as humans evolve, so does our relationship with money. So it behooves everybody to just continue to be dedicated to educating yourself about money individually and together.
Yeah. I remember very early on in my relationship with my husband, I didn't know I had this belief, but it was like, oh, he's a man, he takes care of the money, until I was diagnosed. And I remember
Hmm.
looking at him to be like, you got this, like, you got this. And I could see he was drowning. And that was the first time where I was like, oh my goodness, he doesn't have this. And which I'm sure that's a whole other conversation of him being like, I'm supposed to have this. And culturally, and I don't have this. So the shame of that. But that was the first time where we had open conversations about money, where I was like, I didn't even realize that it was an area of my life that I was avoidant to, because I was
Mm,
taught men handle that. Like, here you go, here's the little money that I have. And even being told that it's my responsibility just to make enough to buy groceries, but yet my desire was more. And so I started educating myself, thinking, oh, I'm behind on education, he knows all of this. And then we had incredibly uncomfortable conversations, and I cried a lot.
yeah.
And I was like, we got to figure this out. Until now, it's such a completely different relationship, and it's way healthier than it used to be. And it's exciting and joyful, and way less triggering than it used to be. But at the beginning, it was not pretty.
Yeah. I
But
mean,
I was persistent. I was
good.
persistent.
I think compassion goes a long way. I think about men and as they're groomed, as boys into men, and like they arrive into their manhood and their relationships and like, I guess I'm supposed to know everything about money. I guess I'm supposed to, and similarly like women, I guess I'm supposed to know how to be like the best mom on the planet. And
Mhm.
no, we don't know. It's like these expectations are placed on us, but we're not given any roadmaps half the time. And I think that recognizing that too can be helpful in your relationship. That um I think a red flag is sometimes if your partner um is resisting financial conversations. Oh, I got this. Oh, I got this. Maybe they don't. Actually, because they're
Yeah.
overcompensating and they're fearful of being found out. So
Mhm.
if that's happening, I wouldn't trust that either. I think you want to
I'd
ultimately
say,
get
show
to a
me what you
place.
got. Show me what,
Yeah,
if you
like show
got
me
this,
what you
show me
got.
what, yeah.
And
Yeah.
I would just say, for all the folks that work in financial services, when you work with clients, when you work with couples, to treat the individuals in their couplehood equally. Like, not just emailing one partner or making eye contact with one partner at a meeting, that recognizing that even if the person who's not making a paycheck is at the meeting or is in the relationship, like they get equal attention and they deserve equal attention and support.
Yeah. I think we need to really just begin. It all starts with ourselves. I mean,
Mhm.
I have learned over the years, doesn't matter what area of my life, I need to look in the mirror and say, where am I avoidant to this? Where am I putting all this expectation on somebody else to solve my problems? And at minimum, like, I'm curious your thoughts on this, Farnoosh, but at minimum, if there's an area that I know I'm avoiding and it might be money, I'm like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to learn. I will go for a walk and listen to I'll listen to your book. And I'm like, what did I learn today? What did Farnoosh tell me today?
Mhm.
Or the podcast or something? Because it's like, I just need to start, getting
Yeah.
in that world and leaning into it a little bit, opening your bank accounts, looking at things line by line. How much money are you spending? Um, just slowly empowering yourself, you get a better night's sleep. So, what do you say to that woman who is making money, wants to make money, and she's like, I still feel disempowered when it comes to money? Where should she start
Well, I would
when it
say,
comes to her financial health and feeling good about
mhm,
it?
mhm. I mean, like you, definitely plugging into a world where, knowing you're not alone and knowing that there are communities out there, many of them now, more than I've ever seen, supporting women at, of all like flavors. It's like maybe you want to find a community that's like in your industry, or a community that is all like working parents, or women who are, in your zip code. I mean, there's just like literally it's so fragmented now in a great way that you can find your people. And the fear of money is universal. Know that. And usually it just means that you have to get more educated. Fear loves to live where there is a lack of literacy and understanding. Because then without the education, without the truth, your brain starts to create stories that aren't true, right? We lean into like the myths, and that's not a great place to be in. So if you are feeling fear, see fear as a healthy cue to go out there and take a step to get more plugged in and more educated. It could be a book, it could be a podcast, it could be a Facebook group, it could be a miniature course that you take. I wouldn't invest a lot of money. I hear about women who are like getting out of a divorce and they've never managed their own money and they get preyed upon. There are financial quote unquote experts out there that target a lot of these vulnerable women who are like, newly out of relationships, and they have fear justifiably because they don't know what they don't know. And so they'll give thousands of dollars to a program that they think is
Mm-hmm.
going to like answer all their investing questions. And I just want you to know that if anything costs a lot of money to help you get your finances figured out, I would highly question it. This is not an area of your life to sprint through or to do any impulsive moves in. That you want to take your time. It's a long game. And with investing, especially, a little bit over the course of many years can still net you significant amounts of money. And investing, I teach this periodically to my community. uh, there are many sort of sales pitches out there about investing in this hot stock, or this is how pick your stocks. I don't believe in picking stocks. I just think, you get a diversified portfolio that you just follow the US stock market. How about just start there? You can buy one index fund, follow the US stock market. With that, you're getting 500 plus companies, and you just contribute, what you can. There's no
Mm-hmm.
minimum. And so you just ride it. And then you go back to managing your life. I don't think that money needs to be this all consuming topic in your life. I think in the beginning when you're learning, sure, you get deep into it, but know that the people in this world, in this country, that are richest wealthiest, they weren't they didn't get there because they made impulsive moves. Yes, they had some luck, and yes, maybe they had some um, resources and access that we don't. But generally, like the best way to build wealth is to be disciplined, to take your time, ride the wave, don't make impulsive moves, and to live below your means. I mean, it's not rocket science, right? But we are so uneducated in this field that there are those out there, the marketers and the sales folks who want to they sort of attack us when we're weakest, and they
Mhm.
make us believe that it's not as simple as it really is. Like it's very
Yeah,
complicated. You need this help, you need this course, you need this program. And I just would caution you to take your time and really do your research before giving anyone your money to get rich.
I agree. And I just over and over again, I think at the core of everything is not letting fear run the show and slowly leaning in. Um, oh my gosh, Farnoosh,
Yes.
gold,
Thank
gold.
you. Thank you. Well, you just bring out
Where
the
can
best
people,
in your guests. You really do. You ask the best questions.
if you would have cried, extra joy. I didn't get a tear, but I'm just kidding. Farnoosh, where can people find you? Your podcast, the books. They're like, I want to lean into the resources that
Yeah.
you have access to.
Well, my podcast, So Money, is turning 10. And I
Wow.
would love for you to join the crusade. 10 years is something, right? Like, I don't know what happened. It was like a blink of an eye. But 10 years in, the show is uh, designed to really be connected to the audience. So Friday episodes are all about answering your money questions. So I encourage you to write in. You can Instagram me. You can DM me on Instagram. You can email me. It's all on the website at farnooshtarabi.com. And we have a lot. So I don't need to give you the whole laundry list of things, but if you just go to that domain, you'll find the books, you'll find our online community, you'll find the podcast, obviously, and how to reach me directly. So I look forward to hearing from as many of you as possible.
Awesome. Thank you, Farnoosh. And you're just incredibly approachable as well. So I always encourage people take a screenshot of this episode that you're listening to, message Farnoosh privately, let her know your biggest takeaway. Um, we have access to so much now. I'm always like, just take a little bite every day, lean
Yeah.
into what you're avoiding. And empower yourself, and it's going to feel really messy at the beginning, but on the other side you're going to be so incredibly proud of yourself. So thank you,
Hmm.
Farnoosh.
Thank you.